well, folks, if you look right over the wall there, you'll see a church steeple here. Now, this is the steeple for St. Joseph's German Catholic Church. And this church was built in 1868 by our German-speaking immigrants here. Now, back in the 1800s, folks, you hear German here just as much as you hear English or Spanish. I mean, my name's actually Dietrich. So if you look over the wall here to the immediate right, folks, you'll see that building there. Now, that is not the church, folks. That's Riverside Mall, where we just left. Now, originally, when they were building this mall, what they wanted to do was to buy the church and just tear it down and build on the whole piece of property. They wanted the entire block. But of course, who's going to sell their historic church? So what the Riverside Mall did was, they just bought all the surrounding land and built on all three sides of the church. So from right here, you can tell a little bitty church there in the middle, and then Riverside Mall to the left and the right.
Oh, wow.
They didn't even leave a room for a parking lot, folks. It's actually just a church up there.
Oh, that's right.
Now, has anyone ever seen a movie called Up?
Yes.
You know, there's a scene in that movie where there's a little building surrounded by a giant building. That's exactly what that looks like. From the top of the stairs here, you'll get a picture that looks exactly like that. And like I said, that's an iconic church. Every fourth Sunday, they have their mass in German. They have an all-male German choir that sings in there. They even have all the original stained glass windows they brought from Germany in there. It's a beautiful church. I tell people they have everything except for a parking lot. Oh, but don't feel bad about that, folks. Listen to this. When they were building the mall, they actually encroached on the church's property by 5 feet. So, of course, the church sued them, and of course, they won, and they were awarded $5 million. $1 million for every foot that the mall went over their property. Talk about karma, don't mess with the church.
Right here, now, here we are floating right through the basement of the old shade. Right here.
We're going to make this left-hand turn, but just want to make sure there's not going to be another boat coming in before we drive out for safety first. No lights, okay, no big time. Now when we make this left-hand turn right here, folks, if you look here to the left in front of the boat, you're going to see a hotel here with square rooms. Now this is the Hilton Palacio del Rio, the Palace of the River. And this hotel, folks, is in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the fastest modularly built building of its size ever. Now, they built this entire hotel, folks, from beginning to end. There's 500 rooms here, and they built this entire hotel in 202 working days. Now, 202 working days, folks, that's less than 8 months. Now, just to give you guys something to compare that to, if you look here to the right, you see our ticket office here. It took us 18 months to build these two little buildings here. I'll tell you right here to the right, 18 months. Here to the left, 8 months. Now, the way they built this hotel so fast, folks, is they built the first 4 floors right here on site, along with the elevator shaft there in the middle as a base. And all the square rooms you see, those were being built at the exact same time, 7 miles out of town, on an assembly line. And they were brought into town on flatbed trucks. And when they arrived, folks, every one of these rooms was fully furnished. Everything was in there. All the beds were in place, pictures on the walls, dressers, mirrors, TVs. Everything was ready to go in every room. All the way down to towels on the racks and soap in the dishes, folks. All they had to do was use 2 giant cranes and stack these rooms on top of each other like Lego blocks. And each individual room weighed 70,000 pounds. And I'll tell you folks, they did this in 202 working days. So they even got the weekends off while they built this hotel. And the way they managed that, folks, was, in the beginning of this project, H.B. Zachary, the man who built this building, says we'll have to do 10 rooms a day. They wanted to stack 5 rooms on each side. But in the beginning of the process, they realized they were so good with the crane work here, they could do 35 rooms a day. So with 35 rooms a day, they were just so far ahead of schedule, he gave them the weekends off, and they still got done in 202 days, world record time. Now you might be thinking to yourself, folks, well, why do you have to build this hotel so fast in the first place? Well, when they first decided to put this hotel up, it was 9 months before the World's Fair was going to open here in 1968. 9 months. So a lot of contractors stepped away from this hotel, said it's not going to happen. You're not going to have that entire hotel done, 500 rooms in less than a year. So when H.B. Zachary stepped forward and said, well, I can do it. Well, the city was kind of skeptical. They said, we want a guarantee. HB Zachary said, I'll guarantee it. And he wrote a contract, folks, that said, if I, HB Zachary, do not finish this building before the opening of the World's Fair, I will sell to you, City of San Antonio, the remaining portion of the unbuilt building for $1. That's how he got the contract. And now all this part of the river here, folks, now this is the Artisan River Theater. And the seating here is to the left, and the stage is to the right. It's an amphitheater divided by the river. And folks, we can seat 800 people here in the Artisan. We call that intimate seating. Because with 800 people up there, you will get to know your neighbors. And now this part of the river looks familiar, folks. If you've ever seen a movie called Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock, this is where they filmed the swimsuit competition. And coming up here to the right of the boat, folks, now this is the Briscoe Western Art Museum. Now this used to be the original San Antonio Public Library from 1930 until 1968. In 1968, it was renovated and turned into the Hertzberg Circus Museum. In 2013, it was renovated again and turned into the Briscoe Western Art Museum. This sculpture here to the right is called Onward to the Briscoe, represents a Spanish cowboy, a vaquero herding cattle up to the Briscoe.
Mira, mira los pollos.
And this next bridge, we're going to go under right here in front of us, folks. Now, this is the Plessa Street Bridge. And this bridge was built back in 1890 by a British ironworks company. And there are only 6 of these bridges known to still be in existence, and 5 of them span the riverwalk. These were built for horse and carriage. I tell people the only thing I don't like is this is why we don't have 7-foot-tall boat drivers here on the riverwalk. You gotta know exactly which way to go under this bridge according to your height. And right here, folks, I usually have another question. Do I have any romantics on the boat? And then I'll raise my hand. I'll be the first. I'm a hopeless romantic. Now here to the right of the boat, folks, this is called Marriage Island. Now we have about 300 marriages performed right here on this little island every year. This is where Father Damien Massenet held the very first Catholic Mass here on the river back in 1691 and actually named it the San Antonio River. So this is considered to be a holy site and an extra blessing on your marriage to get married right here. So people come from all over Texas to get married right here on this little island.
Right now.
And I'll tell you a cute story, folks. I was driving by here about 5 or 6 months ago, and there was a young couple that was sitting there kissing. I said, sir, you know this is called Marriage Island, right? And he said, well, I may as well propose. So he reached in his pocket, pulled out the ring, got down on his knee. And I confess, folks, I'm a hopeless romantic. I couldn't stop this boat fast enough. I don't know who was more surprised, me or his girlfriend. So I told myself, well, that's a cute story. I'm going to add that into my tour. That's a cute story. So I added it in, folks. And 4 days later, there was another couple. They were sitting right here on the corner. I call those the love seats. The gentleman said, do you mind if I say something? I said, no, sir. You can say whatever you like. He got down on his knee and proposed to his girlfriend. Have you guys ever seen that movie, Superstar? I felt like Mary Catherine Gallagher, folks. I was like, yes. And the first thing I thought to myself, folks, was please say yes, please say yes, please say yes. There's going to be a long, awkward tour if you don't say yes, man. But she said yes, so it worked out perfect. And sometimes, folks, people will ask me, Defense, what's the name of your boat? I tell them, this is the Love boat. You know, I'm doing pretty good. I'm Super 2, so I'm doing pretty good. And here to the left of the boat, folks, now this is my favorite building on the Riverwalk. This is the Tower Life building. Now this building is 400 feet tall. It was built back in 1929 and called the Smith and Young Tower. And Mr. Smith and Mr. Young were really superstitious, so they put those gargoyles all the way around the top. There's actually 16 of those that circle the top of the building. And if you look right above the secular windows here on the bottom there, folks, you'll see some faces. Now those faces are called grotesques. They put those there to help ward away evil spirits and make sure they make good business investments. But did you catch it, folks? Good business investments. They built this building in 1929. So when the stock market crashed, they lost everything. It cost them $3 million to complete this building in 1929. And when the stock market crashed, they had to sell it for $300,000. Pennies on the dollar. I tell people with that deal, that was literally pennies on the dollar. Those faces did not work. And this next bridge, we're going to wander right here, folks. See that sign in the middle? It says St. Mary Street. Now this is the St. Mary Street Bridge, folks. Now this bridge, ladies and gentlemen, that we're about to go under right now, the St. Mary Street Bridge, folks. Now this bridge right here, guys, has no historical significance. Except for this, folks. Look, I'll show you why that's my favorite building on the Riverwalk. If you look back at the Tower Light building from the other side of this bridge, it looks like a ship coming down the river. Yeah, they designed the whole front end of this building like the bow of a ship. It's now an insurance office. And if you can imagine, folks, somebody standing up there like this, DiCaprio style, there's a reason for that, folks. They designed the whole front end of this building like the bow of the Titanic. And that's actually one of two optical illusions here along the Riverwalk. And now right here, folks, we're going to make this right-hand turn. And when we do, we're going to be on the deepest part of the Riverwalk here. This is all going to be 15 feet deep. Now the rest of the river, folks, all the way around, that's only 4 feet deep through the entire downtown area. But this part was dredged out for flood control between 1921 and 1941. Because we had a flood here, folks, back in 1921, before this section of the river was added in, and the water here in the downtown area alone, folks, was 10 feet above the street level. So that's a lot of water we have to deal with here in the downtown area, 10 feet above the street level. And right here, folks, look, something else for the romantics. If you look up on the street level there, see all the locks on the fence there in front of us? Now those are called love locks, like in Paris. Now the tradition says what you do is you get married, and you and your spouse come down and you put a lock on the fence. And you both kiss the keys, and you throw the keys in the river, seeing that you're down forever. So right now, there are thousands of keys beneath us in the river. And if you look back from this side, folks, there's another fence on this side with hundreds more locks on it. You know, I used to tell people, folks, all those keys are beneath us in the river right now. But I had to stop saying that. All those keys part, you know, I think some of these guys might be a little unsure of themselves, because I realized, folks, if you look there to the left, look, there's a lot of combination locks up there. So a lot of these guys are not throwing their keys in the river. And there's a little store right here on the corner called Love Street where you can buy a lock right there and put it on the fence. Now, I'll tell you something else, folks. Now, there were a lot of battles out here along San Antonio River, folks. A lot of battles. The battle for the Alamo. And if you look here to the right of one, folks, you see that giant cypress tree there? Now, that cypress tree actually has a name. We call that the Ben Milo cypress tree. And the reason for that, folks, is one of our Texas patriots here. His name was Ben Milo. He was actually killed by a sniper from this tree right here. Now, during the battle for the Alamo, folks, Santa Anna would post snipers in this tree, and they would shoot up and down river at all the Texans that came by to get water for their horses. Now, I'm going to back up right here, folks. If you look here in front of us to the left there, there's going to be a doorway with a mosaic right there. And that's a historic mosaic that shows you what the river looked like back then. And in that picture, you'll see a sniper in a tree, and that's this tree here to the left. And there's also going to be a bend in the river, and that's this bend to the left. It makes this natural left-hand turn, and all this to the right, that's what was dredged out for flood control. So the mosaic you see in the doorway there, that's the natural state of the San Antonio River where we are right now. We're actually going to be going around that bend in the river right now. And now, just to give you a quick visual, folks, like I said, we had that flood. The water was 10 feet above the street level. So just to give you a quick visual of what that looks like, if you look here to the left of the building, you see this white brick building here? Now, this is the Jewelry Inn Hotel right now. But back in 1921, when we actually had that flood, this was our CPS office, City Public Service. This is where you compare your utility bills. And there was a picture in the San Antonio paper, ironically the CPS office floods. The water was just below the chandeliers. So that's what 10 feet above the street level looks like, folks, just below the chandeliers. And here to the right about, folks, this little bar we're passing here. Now this is the Esquire Tavern. And this is the very first bar to open on the Riverwalk, folks. And they opened this bar, guys, literally the day after Prohibition ended with a fully stocked bar in there ready for business. I tell people, how do you think they did that? Either they had one heck of a delivery guy or that was a speakeasy. And it actually was a speakeasy disguised as a barbershop. So you had to know exactly what kind of haircut you wanted, or exactly what day of the week, or the guy at the little door wouldn't let you go downstairs for a drink. And you can actually still do what we call going into the downstairs. You go to the Esquire on Fridays and Saturdays and say, we want to go downstairs. And they'll take you down there, it looks exactly like a speakeasy. Like they didn't change a thing, vintage drinks and all. Pretty cool. And here to the right of us, now this is our Aztec Theater location. Now this is the third ticket office here on Riverwalk, folks, but you'll take the exact same tour with the exact same company and all. And if you look on the street level here, to the right of us, folks, you see that red brick building there? Now that's the side view of the Aztec Theater. And this theater opened in 1926 as a silent movie venue. But you know, back in the 70s and 80s, they actually started playing talking movies. And I was one of those kids, folks. I spent the entire 80s in that building like they were watching Kung Fu movies. And this next bridge, we're going to wander right here, folks. Now this has become the most popular footbridge on the Riverwalk. We call this the Celina Bridge. Now, if you folks have ever seen the movie Celina with Jennifer Lopez, that's where they filmed on this bridge here. And you know how sometimes when you come to a low bridge, the natural thing to do is to reach up and touch that bridge? I touch that bridge every time I come by. Whether I have guests on my boat or not, I'll touch that bridge. You know why I touch that bridge? Because Celina Quintanilla and Jennifer Lopez still on that bridge. And now coming up right here, folks, I'll show you the second optical illusion here along the Riverwalk. Now when I pass this bridge, folks, if you look straight up to the left of the boat, we're going to see the old Knicks Hospital. And this hospital was built back in 1930. It was revolutionary, folks. It was the first hospital here in the country that was completely air conditioned. Hi! But the really cool thing about this building, folks, is it was designed from the Riverwalk side to look like a flat wall. So when I pass this bridge, folks, if you look straight up to the left of the boat, you'll see a 26-story flat wall with windows. So look straight up to the left. And some very famous people you folks may have heard of were born here at the Knicks Hospital. Carol Burnett was born here at the Knicks, and Oliver Dorff was born here. One of our former mayors, Mrs. Nellos, was born here. And I was born here, June 5th, 1967. Woo-hoo! I tell people I'm semi-famous anyway, so it kind of counts.
You gotta say bye-bye.
Bye. And right here in front of the boat, folks, now this is the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Now this hotel is right across the street from the Alamo, so it had to be shadow tested. Now we have a tradition here in San Antonio that says no building will ever cast a shadow on the Alamo. It's actually a national shrine, so you can't do it. Now this hotel was planned to be 26 stories tall. But at 26 stories here, well, that would have been a huge shadow on the Alamo. So what they did was, while the building was building here, the city and the state came out and they inspected his shadow line. Now there isn't such thing as a shadow line, folks. They inspected the shadow line of this building as it went up, and when he made it to 16 stories, they told him you have to stop your building right here. You cannot build it any higher. If you go one floor higher here, 17 stories, you might cast a shadow on the Alamo, and you cannot do that. So they actually capped this building at 16 stories tall. Yeah, folks, it was literally supposed to be that tall. See the Knicks Hospital? That's how tall this hotel was supposed to be. And now all this part of the river coming up right here in front of the boat, folks. Now this is called the River Square. And this is where you'll find most of the bars and restaurants here along the river. So if you folks have ever wondered, does anybody actually fall into the river? Yes, they do, folks, fall into the river. We average about 60 people every year that fall in. And they usually fall in right along in here somewhere. You know, we call those guys the Friday Nighters. Now, I also tell people, folks, now here in the downtown area, the natural flow of the San Antonio River is only 4 feet deep. And here in San Antonio, we are known to throw a party. It's called Fiesta. It lasts for 11 days. So I think they left this river 4 feet deep for a reason.